So if you've got we need to deliver $1 million every single day as a key metric, okay.
Was that actually a goal at the Iconic?
The numbers were much bigger than that. Much bigger than that. Let's say $1 million, right? How are we going to deliver on that objective, right? If we're going to create that many orders, then this week we need to produce a campaign that does A, B, and C and reaches this many customers, because then with a 3% conversion rate, we know we're going to get that money, which contributes up the line. Those big sort of sales events, you understand what impact that has on the operations teams in the fulfillment center. We get excited internally, the marketing team. This event's going to be massive.
Did you get on the phone and tell the fulfillment center that we were doing this big, massive event and the orders are probably going to go 100x overnight?
No, forgot to do that. You make a ton of mistakes, you learn really quick, and you are thrown into the deep end. I've been part of an organization that grew at the Iconic from probably a few hundred people to 1,000 plus by the time I left.
Prominent Australian fashion retailer group has shut down dozens more stores as the shift toward online shopping gathers steam.
This time it is with the Iconic.
If you think about scaling, how you grow your skill set, learn on the job by doing and failing. Add in an element there of, are there specific skills or things that you want to learn? Information is either on YouTube already or online. If it's a course for you, then fine, but find your thing that you kind of want to add to that skill set. Like, Google this stuff as well. If you're not comfortable in sending the message, just Google, how can I approach somebody? You're not going to hear from people. It's not personal. All of those thoughts that you had in your head is like, is he going to think I'm a dickhead? What am I going to do? Just do it. You just got to face into it, lean into it, right away, deal with it. Can't run away from that stuff, man. Along with it as quickly as possible and face the music.
Do us a quick favor, guys. Hit the follow, subscribe button. Share this with someone who would benefit from it. And help us grow, as the more we grow, the better the episodes we'll get. Thanks, guys, for helping us. And let's get into the episode. Welcome to this episode of the SCULPTED podcast, guys. Wow, I am excited for today's episode. It is the first episode that we've done in person in about 1.5 years, as I was explaining to our guest Patrick. The first episode I did in person was with ex-co-host Charlie Miller, who is now the brother of the current co-host, so full circle there. And we did the first episodes in London. We did about 5, but now we are bringing it back and we're doing the in-person interviews again, and it's so exciting. I'm really keen to speak with Patrick today. So Patrick, he's someone who I met over LinkedIn, and we can probably go over that story, a little bit later. I've actually spoken about it in this podcast before because I'm like, cool, this is exactly what this podcast is about. For me, it's connecting. It's about finding people through LinkedIn and getting great relationships. And that's exactly what I want to do in this episode. So Patrick is the former head of brand at the Iconic, which is, if you're Australian, you probably know what the Iconic is. But if you're outside of Australia, then what's a good comparison outside of Australia?
Think ASOS in the UK.
Yeah, okay. Actually, I got these shoes from ASOS. Yeah, don't know.
Should have got them at the Iconic.
Yeah, thinking about it now, because I did have to pay extra shipping for them. And yeah.
I bet it took ages as well.
It took about 3 weeks, and then I realised they're the wrong size.
Next day delivery, pal. Next day delivery. Exactly. Even on the Central Coast.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
See, that's what we need in Australia, because there's nothing like, even Amazon Prime's like 5 days. Oh, gosh. Well, what can we do? Anyways, Patrick, I'd love to know more about yourself. Introduce yourself to the guests, and yeah, would love to hear about it.
Awesome. Firstly, thank you for having me on. Really appreciate it. And I would love to get into our kind of story, how we first met as well.
Yep.
But I guess a little bit of background on me. I am a freshly 43-year-old living on the Central Coast in beautiful New South Wales. I was born and bred in London. At 18, I went to uni in Liverpool and spent 13 great years there. Bit of studying, bit of partying, bit of DJing.
What was the ratio between the three?
Oh, listen, you ask my mum and dad, they'd probably say it was 50-50, but the honest opinion, the honest view is it was about 95-5 in favour of the party.
Yeah.
However, after getting that out of my system, I then found my way into a company called Littlewoods, real heritage brand in the UK. Started off as a catalogue business where you could pay in weekly instalments for things. So it really made fashion, homewares and electricals affordable. I was started in Liverpool, an institution within Liverpool, but also within the UK, and it's transitioned over those years. Now is the Very Group, and I think probably in the top 3 online retailers, certainly in the UK, multi-billions.
So massive.
Huge. When I was in the business, which was about 15 years ago, it was going through a transition from catalogue to online. So I really got a flavour of sort of e-commerce, online trading at that point. and then moved 11 years ago to Australia. My then partner, now wife, and I decided let's do a bit of traveling before we get too old, and we'll be back in a year. And 11 plus years later, we are here, still in Australia, with two beautiful Aussie boys, Finn and Oshin, the 6 and 3-year-olds. And I've wrapped up sort of at the tail end of last year for spending about 10 and a half years with The Iconic, as you mentioned before, online fashion and lifestyle retailer. Number one, certainly in ANZ, 1,200 plus brands, unbelievable delivery proposition, and just a fantastic, I think, success story within ANZ. And that's where I really sort of cut my teeth within marketing and branding, learned a ton there. And I'm sure that we'll delve into a little bit more about that as we go further into the podcast.
100%. Now, hey guys, I don't want to interrupt this episode, but gotta do what I gotta do. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you leave a comment if you enjoyed it. If you want any to give any feedback, even just leave that below. We're open to everything. Join the Patreon, guys. There's gonna be a lot more stuff on there. We want to hear from you guys as well. We want to get you involved. If you want to be beta testers to the SCULPTED app, let me know. I can make that happen. Try and get involved at any level. What we're doing at Live Free, guys, make sure you check what we're doing there. Liam's got his own personal YouTube channel. He's always uploading. I've got my own personal YouTube channel that I've started uploading twice a month now. It's going to be cinematic like I am now, right? I've got the light above, got a cool camera. That's what I'm going to be working on, guys. So make sure you follow Live Free Diaries. SCULPTED app. We're doing great stuff over there. Additionally, we want to grow this podcast, guys. And the only way we can do that is through your guys' help. So make sure you subscribe, listen to us on all audio platforms. We're everywhere. So make sure you interact with us. Make sure that you help us grow, because the only way that we can grow this podcast is through you. We'll get better guests. We've always had great guests from the get-go, but we'll get even better guests on. Production value will go up. I've got my studio, but we need to get Liam his studio, and the only way we can do that is through monetizing this platform. So make sure you do that, guys. And I'll go back to the episode. I'll let you go. The Iconic. When I first got your message, I was like, I think I saw it, and it said like The Iconic after it, and I'm thinking, I know The Iconic. I normally, like, the messages that I get typically are from like football people. Mm-hmm. So when I first got the message from you, and I was thinking, oh, okay, I must be doing something right at this point. I think at this time I'd kind of just shifted into full-time business with the app, SCULPTED, everything that I'm doing there. And that's the beauty of LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. I've had so many great connections come through LinkedIn, and that's something that I think really puts me in a great position compared to other kids my age, because I've got a network. And I think that that's something that I've really been able to do and get people like yourself involved to speak with, and to not just help what I'm doing, but also things like this podcast, right? It's a great value exchange. The ability for me to get someone on like yourself and then speak with them in depth and put it into a podcast, I think is an awesome thing. And that's really, what today's going to be. But let's get into some of the icebreakers. Now, for context, guys, Patrick and I spoke maybe 2-3 weeks ago for about like 3 hours or so. Mm-hmm. And we had some really great chats, just talking about everything. I think we connected really well. And the icebreakers for us are kind of like, I can probably almost guess what these are. The answers will be. Actually, maybe the first one. Maybe not.
I'm a bit nervous about this. This is interesting.
We'll see.
Let's see.
But they're for the listener, sorry. So the first one that I've got, which is a quick fire question, Nike or Adidas?
Nike.
Good. Thank goodness, because if it was Adidas, we'd have a problem. Because, I'm German, right? So I was living like 2 hours away from the headquarters. Yeah. I used to go to the headquarters like every day when I was living in the same town. Mm-hmm. And I just went there because it was like cool. Mm-hmm. But if it was Nike, I would have lived there. Yeah. And I only wear Nike.
Yeah.
So
I need to give you context for Nike as well.
Okay.
Because there is I remember seeing my favorite pair of trainers. I can vividly remember this from when I was about 8 or 9. Yeah. And there was a kid called Dennis in the playground. Yeah. In London, and he had the Nike Air Max 90 infrareds, which are kind of the Air Max 90 style with sort of this pinky color around the air bubble. And I was captivated, and that was it. I wanted Air Max 90s from then on, and I managed to get hold of a pair probably for the first time about 6 years ago, and I've had multiple of that colorway since. They get re-released every couple of years, but that's when the love affair of Nike started. And I think linked with brand, it built an emotional connection with me very early on.
100%, yeah.
Very early on. So it holds that special place. So Nike, 100% every single time. However, I must say that I think that's from a footwear perspective. From an apparel perspective, I've gone down the route of, especially during winter, Adidas jumpers. They're just a bit cooler.
Yeah, okay. I guess that's that German, cold that they've got. They have to have nice jackets. So that does make sense. But the Nike story is interesting because for me, I've got a very similar story in terms of the World Cup adverts. This is why I'm so in depth with, like, when I was showing you some of the stuff that I had on Notion, I'm literally like just looking at everything that Nike's done and I'm like, how can I make that? Because my emotional attachment to Nike, as you were kind of alluding to as well with yourself, I don't know why I'm in love with Nike. I don't know why I've always been in love with Nike. But, well, actually, to be fair, I do now in hindsight. But I'm just so loyal to Nike because I see the ads. I love the ads. I watch the ads to this day. I probably watch it like once every few months just to like get back in the 2014 World Cup spirit. And it's just, you just see so much connection. I just love it. And that's exactly what I want to do with everything I'm doing with Sculpted. So again, I've heard so many people have such a similar story with the Nike thing. The CEO of the Udi, are you familiar with him?
No.
Okay. He's a shark on Shark Tank in Australia. And he has a very similar story as mine, but with the basketball ads that they did.
Right.
And he just fell in love with Jordan and Nike. And yeah, that's the type of marketing that I'm very fixated on.
And taps into cultural important events, right? The World Cup. They were behind that, they were part of it. And they know intrinsically that with those sporting events that it's connected and to many emotions that then build that link with the brand from the get-go.
Yeah.
Mine was through actually a product. I can't recall that many pieces of advertising, but it was just seeing that product that was so unique, a colorway that was so unique that I immediately looked at the product and was like, I fell in love with it there and then. Again, fell in love with the product, you had the advertising, all of this laddering, I think, back to emotions. And when you build an emotion, connection with a brand, it's super, super powerful. It will stand the test of time. For you, almost 19 years. For me, an old 43-year-old who saw it probably when I was like 8 years old, so 30 plus years later, and I'm still talking about it.
Yeah. Was Dennis a good friend of yours, or?
He wasn't. He was in the year above me, actually.
So you're always looking up to Dennis?
I wouldn't say necessarily looking up to him. He was an older kid, and I think you always held older kids, and they were like the older kids that knew more and were cooler in some way. He was a bloody great footballer. Okay. And I remember where it was. He was running against the fence, and he did some little move and like stepped over the ball, pulled it back. He had a really cool high top as well.
Yeah.
But I was just captivated by, I think, the feet moving and the colorway, and just was like, I need those. Yeah. It's very, very vivid memory.
Yeah.
Very vivid memory.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Well, the next question I've got for you is early bird or night owl?
Early bird, 100%.
Yeah.
Every single time.
Good.
I am a morning person. And actually, it's interesting with my wife is the complete opposite. Maybe that's part of the reason why we work well and opposites attract. But early bird, best part of the day for me. Kids are in bed, time to yourself, it's quiet, nobody else is around. Early bird, 100%.
Yeah. That's good. I'm the exact same. I love to wake up very early. Unfortunately, has its limitations sometimes, but because I do value my sleep.
Yeah.
I find it hard to sleep, but I do value it. But yeah, love the mornings for sure. Actually, that running track at the front.
Yeah.
Nice morning. Oh, it's the best thing.
Along the water?
Yeah, I was there this morning.
Beautiful spot. It's a great way to wake up. And interesting, I think about a year or so ago, found out by one of the many podcasts out there that I think you are either born, like genetically within you, you're a morning person or you're a night owl.
Really?
You're one of the two. There's something within the genetics and your makeup. It's much more nature than nurture. Right. So it's built into you. There's a number of reasons for that can go right back to kind of, you needed people to protect your tribe.
Yeah.
So there were people up more so early or late at night. So you had that 24-hour.
The hunters or the gatherers.
Yeah, that's it. That's the proper terminology.
The hunters probably go out in the morning.
Yeah.
The gatherers, they're like gathering everything at night, making sure it's ready for tomorrow. Yeah. That's probably what it is. Yeah. This should be a science show.
Yeah. And it's and therefore it's quite hard to become a morning person if you're a night owl and vice versa. You can try it and you can try different methods, but I think you for the main part, you are born one or the other. Google it.
Yeah. That's a very
check it out.
Yeah. Okay. So The last quick fire question is, if you could teleport anywhere right now, where would it be?
Wow. I think if I could teleport anywhere and be invisible, I would teleport into the classroom that my boys are in. Because one thing that you don't get to see is how they interact with their bodies and the teachers are kind of on the day-to-day. You do drop-off and you do pick-up. And what you'll often find parents, especially when they're going to kind of nursery and daycare, is that you'll see parents sort of hanging about to see kind of what the interactions they're going.
The binoculars.
Yeah, it's just fascinating to watch. So I would definitely teleport into my son's classroom or into Oshin's playgroup, because you get to see stuff and see them in their just being their 100% natural selves around other kids similar to them. So yeah, I think I'd do that.
That is actually a really good answer. I like that one for sure. That is very good. Okay, I've got 2 what would you do's. These are so open and broad, so I'm putting you on the spot here a little bit. But what would you do, and what would the first thing you do actually if you woke up in your neighbor's body tomorrow?
If I woke up in, I would probably panic, because my next door neighbor is super old.
So they're not listening to this then?
They're definitely not listening.
We're safe. Good.
If you said YouTube to her, bless her, it would confuse her. But panic initially, but then I guess what would be interesting is how might I challenge or make my neighbour's day as good as possible.
Okay.
One thing and by that I mean one thing I get a lot of joy from and a lot of energy from and a lot of endorphins from is getting out and moving and being outside and doing stuff. Like that early morning routine piece of me. So I would love to, because I know that she sits indoors quite a lot, and that kind of solitary can be sort of almost a flywheel of compounding negative interest and head down. So I would love to get out, be that source of energy, get out, do the walk to the coffee shop, interact with people, be around with people as much as possible. So it would scare the shit out of me, but that's something that I think could help add value and help her feel good. So I think that's what I'd do.
You've got really good answers. I like that one.
I love that this is on the fly as well.
Yeah, it's good.
Straight into it.
That's why I didn't send you this as that little icebreaker thing, because you know what? I've had it with people, as I said to you before, where either it's like, it's just way too long and we're taking 30 minutes to get through, or we're just completely going off tangent. But I like the style here. So the last one we've got is, now I've done this before, I'm guilty. You've probably also done it before. But what do you do in a situation when you send someone a text and you send that to the wrong person and it's about them?
Absolute panic, heart in your mouth moment.
Yeah.
Immediately go to delete if you realized. Delete for everybody.
But what if they've seen it?
If they've seen it, you just got to face up to it straight away.
Okay.
Now it depends on the content, right?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Could be a screenshot of the message, and it's like, why screenshot of my messages?
It could be. Whether it's positive or negative, if you send it a mistake, probably negative.
Probably negative,
right?
Yep.
You just got to face into it, lean into it straight away, deal with it. Can't run away from that stuff, man.
Yeah, I agree.
Get on with it as quickly as possible.
Yeah,
and face the music.
Yeah.
And also, look, if you're sending something and it ain't that flattering, then there's probably a reason for you doing that, right? And it's just the way you feel. So it actually could be a good thing, because it might spark a conversation. Gets you the two of you on the same page, whatever the topic might be.
Yeah.
So absolute panic and fear, but then work through it and just have the convo.
Yeah. Yeah. I like it. I like it again. It's good. So getting into the juicy part of the app. So talking about marketing, we've already kind of hinted at a few things with Nike, obviously, but let's act as if I am a new brand. I've just started. Maybe it's a drop shipping site. Maybe it's a like a teeth whitening kind of brand, whatever it is. They've just started. They've got products. They've got their approval. Everything like that is ready to go. but they have a limited budget for marketing. What would you do in this situation, and how would you start to make the most basic level of marketing for them? Is it focusing on the typography, focusing on the colors, the branding? What does that look like for you?
I think to almost bring this up a level, right, and then we'll bring it back into this example. There's three pillars that you should think about with your approach to marketing. And some of the things you just described there come in part of it, generally pillar 2 and 3.
Yeah.
But those 3 pillars are really start by being market orientated.
Okay.
Right?
So being aware of the market.
Yes. But also that means, look, what are the hopes, beliefs, desires, pain points that people in the market have, right? You're trying to find out kind of what that problem is that you can go and solve.
Okay.
So you're getting a feel for the desires. And in this case, if it's teeth whitening, there's a ton of people out there who can't afford whitening but want their teeth and aesthetically want to look great and it makes them feel good, right? So if you can start to be market orientated, i.e. start with the kind of the problem, the beliefs, the ambitions of people in the market, that is the starting point. Is there a market there for me to create a product that can help solve that problem, right? Be market orientated.
Okay.
Pillar 2 then is strategy, right? And when I'm talking about strategy, there's 2 things really that are sitting in that. You've got an idea of, yes, there's a market out there, there's a collection of people going to want this. So then get really clear on who you're targeting.
Okay.
Now, you can do that in a couple of ways, right? You can build out a kind of a fictional persona, right? Somebody out there who helps build sort of an image in your head on who this customer is. You've become more market orientated, kind of the pain points that people have got. There's a collection of people there. Now, I know who I'm going after. Let's build a persona. This person looks like, thinks like this. So you might have some behavioral and psychographic feels for people. The type of things that they do. There might be some demo stuff in there. They're probably going to be younger, 18 to 25, for example.
Yeah.
And then you want to think about, which gets into your fonts and pieces, is how do I want to position in that target consumer's mind, right? And by positioning is what are the things that I want these people to think about my brand when I put it out there.
Is that the brand voice as well?
Brand voices, it can certainly be within that, yeah?
Yeah.
So if you want people to think you provide a brilliant product that is affordable and can solve their problem of really terrible yellow teeth, then great. You can start to think with this view of size of the market and being market orientated, the kind of customer persona that you're going after, you can then start to build out your brand voice. Where if I'm speaking to this person, all the type of messages and tone of voice that I need to have, does it need to be fun and quirky and engaging, or does it need to be really more serious and like financial services, very specific and hard block, clear line text, or a little bit softer with rounder edges and approachable and quirky and engaging? You can start to think about that tone of voice and therefore kind of look and feel and your fonts and your key messages. How are these people going to respond? Are they going to respond to these type of messages to create that positioning in people's minds?
Okay.
Because the thing to remember with having a brand is that brands just exist in our minds, right?
Yeah.
You can hold 1, 2, maybe 3 things in your mind, like you were talking about Nike earlier, those 2 or 3 things that spring to mind. What are the things that you want to come to mind when somebody says smile teeth, right?
Yep.
And that's how you can start to build out your positioning, your proposition and your tone of voice and your messaging. And then the final piece is your tactics. Okay. Now, the tactics often comes first for a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
We jump straight into tactification, right? And at its most simple, basic level, product, price, place, and promotion. Yeah. Okay. Back to the 4 Ps of marketing. So you've got a good view on your product, right? You're market orientated. You know that there's a need out there and you can fulfill that. You're clear on who you're going after. So you've got that product fixed. We've got a product that we think is fit for market. Brilliant. Yeah. Can then go to your pricing. You can look at competition for that, right? Actually, we need to be more premium or more accessible. So you can figure out kind of what your pricing is going to be. Place, where are people going to use this product or consume this product, right? That which will then lead you to your promotion. Right, which is your tactics. So that's when you're putting your messaging and you're choosing your channels and how you're going to reach them. Okay. So I guess in essence, if you go back to kind of the fundamentals and I'll recap on those kind of 3 pillars: market orientation, kind of the problems, the pain points, the things that people need, making sure you've got a hypothesis and there's a market out there. Then jumping into, where did I go next?
You had the market
Your
range,
strategy,
target,
so your strategy. So you're going into who you're targeting and how do you want to position, and then go into your 4 Ps, right? The fundamentals of marketing, right? It sounds a little bit boring and old school, but when you take that overview, you can then, it makes each step that follows 1, 2, 3 out of those 3 pillars makes each one work a lot harder.
Okay, so the 4 Ps.
Yeah.
Product, pricing, promotion,
Place and promotion.
Place and promotion. Okay, so those are the competitive kind of things, right? So if you want to separate yourself from the competitor, you can make it more premium with the price, you can make the product better, or, if you want to compete on price, you lower the price, make it more affordable. Is that the kind of thing that you're talking about there?
That's one of the considerations when you get to the price piece. Yeah.
Okay.
But remember, before all of that, if you start with number 1, which is market orientation, you're going, is there a market out for, I've got a hypothesis in my head, is there a market out there for the product that I want to offer? How can I help answer some of these needs, wants, desires?
Okay.
You start there, everything else will flow out after that.
All right. So if you were to orientate yourself in a market as a luxury product, but then you look at your tactics and you put yourself as a low price, then that's kind of counterintuitive and that's the wrong way of doing it.
Yeah. And I think when you get to the piece that the part that is often talked about most is be it on LinkedIn or out there in the world, is you will often be talking about a specific piece of advertising or a specific channel that's being used. And people often jump straight into the channels. I must use this type of media to reach my audience and this message without having done all that stuff beforehand. So if you get to the point of, if you just started like...
Hey guys, I don't want to interrupt this episode, but, gotta do what I gotta do. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you leave a comment if you enjoyed it. If you want any, to give any feedback even, just leave that below. We're open to everything. Join the Patreon, guys. There's gonna be a lot more stuff on there. We want to hear from you guys as well. We want to get you involved. If you want to be beta testers to the SCULPTED app, let me know. I can make that happen. Try and get involved at any level. What we're doing at Live Free, guys, make sure you check what we're doing there. Liam's got his own personal YouTube channel. He's always uploading. I've got my own personal YouTube channel that I've started uploading twice a month now. It's going to be cinematic like I am now, right? I've got the light above, got a cool camera. That's what I'm going to be working on, guys. So make sure you follow Live Free Diaries. SCULPTED app. We're doing great stuff over there. Additionally, we want to grow this podcast, guys. And the only way we can do that is through your guys' help. So make sure you subscribe, listen to us on all audio platforms. We're everywhere. So make sure you interact with us. Make sure that you help us grow, because the only way that we can grow this podcast is through you. We'll get better guests. We've always had great guests from the get-go, but we'll get even better guests on. Production value will go up. I've got my studio, but we need to get Liam his studio, and the only way we can do that is through monetizing this platform. So make sure you do that, guys. And I'll get back to the episode. I'll let you go.
Take you for a case in point, right? When you started the SCULPTED app, why did you start that? Where did that thought come from? And who were you thinking about, the type of people that kind of need the SCULPTED app?
I was literally, every single year, I create my journal on my iPad, and I make sure it's better the next year. And it got to a point where I'm like, this needs to be an app. And I'm like, people will need this, because I believe that is the best way to get to the best version of yourself. It was through an accumulation of even improving my method that I was thinking, I think that this could be the thing that, could be the ecosystem to being the next Nike of Australia. I want that message, the emotional attachment kind of thing. When people see results and then have that behind a brand, they build that emotional attachment. That's kind of where I was thinking.
Cool. Yeah. So you had a hypothesis. You know that there's people probably within your network and your group that are having similar thoughts. So you took something from yourself, right? That you believe you wanted. You said, is there a need for this out there? So you really started at that market orientation piece, and then going, actually, there's a gap here. I'm after craving this stuff within this field here. I think there's a gap there, and I can help fill that gap. So you started at pillar one, and I know you're at a point from your Notion page and all the activity, and this podcast, which is one of the outputs, great way of reaching your audience. We're almost getting down into the tactics piece and the promotion piece by doing this. So fair play to you. Tip of the hat.
Thank you.
You've gone through the 3 pillars to this point.
And I didn't really know what those 3 pillars were until you've outlined them now. But Yeah, thank you. I think that the way that I wanted to do it is when I think about working smarter and harder for people such as Stephen Bartlett, for people, Chris Williams, and you look at the brands that they've got, quite often a podcast is attached.
Yep.
And I think that's a really smart way of doing it because, as kind of said, it's like bridging that gap between personal connection, value exchange, and then having a product behind it, which is, I think, a good way of doing it. And that's why, I mean, originally I didn't have to sculpt it up when I started the podcast.
Yeah.
But I was like, brilliant.
Yeah.
Now I can really lean into it.
Yeah.
And grow it from there. But that is interesting. So you talk about the 3 pillars, you talk about the 4 Ps. So if you were, let's say, this teeth whitening company and you spent all of your money on, let's say, like the product, which can be really expensive. You've got a limited budget for your marketing. You've done all of that strategy behind it, which is that can be free, right? If you understand those 3 pillars and the 4 Ps, most of that could be done to a good enough level, either through ChatGPT, which is one of my favorite things to do. If I'm inexperienced in a subject, I'll say, okay, ChatGPT, just help me with this. Then I get the strategy there, all for free. But the marketing side, the promotional side, that can cost money, especially if you aren't skilled enough to do it yourself in terms of graphic design, video editing, things like that. Let's say we're this teeth whitening company. What is the first thing you would do to start promoting the product and the company? Would it be like create an Instagram page, website, branding? What would that be for you?
Let's think. So if we go back around to the pillars as well, right? And if we think about who our target audience is and where they're going to be, if it's teeth whitening, right? Ton of people, right, who are interested in teeth whitening. But let's say for example, who we're targeting is people your age up to about 25, 26, 27. So quite a young demographic, socially active, out there all the time, sharing a lot of stuff on Instagram photos, right?
Yeah.
So go to where your audience is going to be. So it's completely free to start Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all these pages. I would probably start there, right?
Yeah.
Because that's where your audience is, right? So it makes sense to engage with them on those platforms.
Yeah.
And it's super, super cheap.
Yeah.
You can also then within Meta, Facebook, Instagram, whatever we call it these days, is start to test and learn. So if you've got a small budget, do up 2 creatives, 2 types of messaging and start throwing stuff out there and testing. You can do that really, really relatively cheaply and start to get an idea on kind of what's working, what's sticking. And look, I think there are the to yourself and your friends and your demo and people who are kind of interested in kind of bettering themselves, but the Gen Zs of the world. And I personally hate using Gen Zs as a way to describe a collective of people because it's just an age, right?
Yeah.
You are very, very different from Joe Blogs, who's the same age as you, who's 2 doors down. And I guess the example to use as a word of caution with thinking about demos is if you think about Ozzy Osbourne, the Prince of Darkness, and you think of the former Prince of Wales, now King of England, Prince Charles, right? 2 very different individuals, the same age, but completely different from each other. So they're into different things. So I hate using kind of those generalizations. But think about where your audience is going to be and then tailor your tactics to meeting that. Yeah. And just test and learn, right? Test and learn. TikTok especially seems to be a place where you can get a ton of content out and get virality. Yeah.
Naturally,
doing crazy stuff naturally. So it's never been easier, I think, to build up a audience organically on limited budgets. And look, and you'll probably, you yourself are evidence of that, right?
Yeah. And my friend even more, right? Like Liam, like the fact that I can't remember if we were recording when we were talking about the ultra marathon. I don't think we were recording. Yeah. But I might even put that in just for a link back. You stumbled across the co-host of this podcast's video about him running his ultra marathon. And Liam has done self-marketing to probably the best level that most people know of, really, because he's got 200,000 on Instagram. That's a very small percent of people who've got that. So he's been doing that promotional side for free. In fact, people pay him. And it's really, really impressive to see how that works. Yeah. And how he can make a very good future of doing very, very basic things consistently to a good enough standard.
Yep.
And to also make it engaging enough that people get behind the message. That, I think, is a really, really good thing that I think more people should do. In Australia, I think it's a little bit difficult to truly like put yourself out there. In Australia, it's probably the same in England a little bit as well.
Why so? Why do you think that is?
Tall poppy effect.
Okay.
So I'm very familiar with it. I think that there's many reasons why. Is that actually a word kind of that they use in England as well?
Yeah.
I think it's...
Explain what it means, just in case anybody doesn't know what it means.
So essentially, if I was to start to want to become better than the rest of the crowd, or essentially grow higher than anyone else, they're going to cut me down. And just naturally, I'm going to want to stay in, the height of everyone else.
Yeah.
If anyone wants to go beyond, they're going to get cut back down. And it takes a very, very brave individual to actually stick with it and go above and beyond. And that's something I know for a fact that I struggled with. Liam also struggled with it. I think Liam did it much better than I did originally, but I think it helped that we moved countries because we knew no one.
Yeah.
So we can embarrass ourselves no matter what.
Yeah.
And that, I think, in America, I think it's different. It's almost encouraged to be that guy.
Yeah.
In Australia and the UK, I think, especially those two countries,
Interesting.
it's kind of looked down upon, at least. So that is a very interesting thing with the personal branding that I can lean into now fully because, for me, I think that I can grow without any growing pain. So, yeah, kind of can lean into the tall poppy effect and, take that with flying colours. But I think that the personal branding side is a very good spin that, as you said, free. It does a very good job of creating that personal attachment and emotion. And I think one reason why you even probably stumbled across Liam's video, you might have seen some of his content before, but the reason why that video was in your feed was quite possibly because it's such an outrageous thing that people want to get behind it.
Yeah.
And
They literally put some on my feed yesterday on YouTube.
Yeah.
So I'm a classic male and spend very little to no time on Facebook, Insta. Consciously, a few years ago, took a step out of it because I was just doom scrolling all the time.
Yeah.
But inadvertently just transferred all that time into YouTube.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
And yesterday, scrolling, and it popped up and it made me stop. And I mentioned it to you without even being triggered earlier.
Yeah.
And so I was scrolling, saw this guy in England's doing a ultra marathon. And the bit that stood out for me, he was really clear, nobody at his age has done it yet. He's going to be the first ultra marathon runner of his age in the UK, or it might be the world. Yeah. And I think he was actually running
as he did it.
He was running as he was talking to the camera was looking down him. So that really stood out to me. Yeah. Just popped up in my feed yesterday.
Yeah. Okay. So what would be your one piece of advice, if you can maybe make it a few more if you want, to anyone who's out there, whether it's creating a brand, personal brand, whatever that looks like, on a very limited budget? How would you do it, or how would you see the best way of doing it be?
I think you just begin by getting really clear on what it is that you offer or you want your brand to represent.
Okay.
And if you take it back to what we were talking about a little while ago, whether it's a personal brand or whether it's a brand like Nike, people can only hold 1, 2, possibly 3 things in their mind, right? So start by thinking, all right, if somebody hears my name, what are the 1 or 2 things that I want to come to mind when people say my name, or they hear my name, or they hear about me? What is that emotion I want to create? What are the associations that I want that person to have? And spend time on that, right? Yeah. Because everything that comes after that will help define how you're going to craft your messaging and how you're going to put yourself out there, right? It will define the messaging, the look and feel, your tone of voice, all of those pieces. So I would say spend time to do that. That is probably the most valuable thing to do. And then just start fucking, excuse my French, just like testing stuff, right? I am guilty of this as well, right? My wife will tell you, my friends will tell you this as well. And it links back into tall poppy syndrome, yeah? That never goes away, by the way, right? There's always a level of fear of what will people think, what will people do? Yeah. But it's never been easier through the channels that we have in social media now and LinkedIn to just start to test stuff and put stuff out there.
Yeah.
So get really clear on kind of what is the value proposition of Patrick Gregson. What are the 2-3 things I want to come to mind when people do that? And then start to craft your messaging around that and start to test stuff. So if you're trying to sell something, if you're trying to get your name out there, whatever it is, be true to yourself, be really clear on that. Make sure that it is something that make sure that you're not trying to replicate what other people do. You can, just be clear that you're being true to yourself.
Okay.
Yeah? Because once you start trying to be somebody else or something else that intrinsically you're not, I think it's gonna show in any content you produce, and you just won't bring your whole self into it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's what I'd recommend. Be really clear on kind of what your value proposition is, and then from that, just start testing. Get out there and start testing. It's easy. It's cheap. It could cost nothing.
Yeah.
And
low risk.
See what sticks. Also, be prepared that you may not get likes or responses or comments for a long time.
Long time.
It could be years in some cases.
Yeah.
But if you stay true to yourself and your value proposition, you will find your audience. They are out there, and they are looking for you just as much as you are looking for them.
Yeah.
Stay true to that, and I think you'll be successful and you'll be happy.
Yeah. I like the part where you're talking about not necessarily like copying people the exact same way. I think that if you're copying people, you're kind of limiting yourself naturally to only ever being as good as that person you're copying. If you're able to do your own thing, which is something that I've been trying to do myself, right? Like, I don't want to necessarily like copy a Joe Rogan, copy a Stephen Bartlett, copy an Andrew Huberman, although I did do some things. Like, actually, it's really funny. When I was in Germany, I was like, I'm going to wear the same like shirt every single time like Andrew Huberman does. I was like there on my like iPhone 6, because I had like heaps of storage on the old iPhone 6, and I'd be like, this is when I first started out, I'm like, so I'd come out with my like proper like literally like button down long sleeve, and I'd be like, so in this episode, and I'd be so proper, and then I was like, yeah, okay, I got to dish that for a bit. But that type of thing where you can take lessons. Maybe I keep the consistent shirt color, which is now what I do. I keep the shirt color and the glasses. That's what I do. But in terms of the blatant copy, I think that's where you're kind of limiting yourself. Create your own niche. Something that Liam actually told me. He's like, you got to find your look. And I think finding your look is also like the visual appearance is the first. What do they say? It's like the first thing.
First impression.
That's how they judge you, right? So if you can make that consistent enough, people will always know, oh yeah, that's him. Kind of like Liam. If you watch another video of his that comes in your screen, and you'll be like, oh, that's the co-host of the Sculpted podcast, Nick's friend Liam. Yeah. That consistency is a cool thing. And yeah, I guess the consistency across branding is also a very good topic we can kind of go into.
You triggered a thought there, which kind of brings us back into kind of the world of branding specifically, and what you're talking about there with the outfit. That can become one of your brand codes, right?
Yes. And
brand codes for Nike is the swoosh or the taglines that they use, right? For you, this becomes part of your brand code. So when somebody sees the round glasses and the black, that combination there and the way you answer the question becomes part of your brand codes, and therefore people realize it's you straight away, just as you said, right? When people are scrolling and they can see that, it's a visual cue to make sure that people become aware and understand it's you straight away. That's super, super, super powerful. And really you can play up to those, and you see brands do it. I think especially kind of the luxury brands do it extremely well, either in the characters or potentially animals that they might use as figures within their branding, the logo, of course, the tone of voice, music that they might use. All of these things, be it sonic, visual, all add to making it really clear and bring those emotions and those one or two thoughts back to mind when you see these visual cues and these brand codes. So super, super important.
You just like outed every single person's like playbook of branding just there. Like that, I think it's a very transparent for you looking at that. Like the company that I was thinking of was Hermes. The horses, they lean into that.
Absolutely.
Literally the other day, I was with my cousin for Mother's Day, and we're like an antique shop. They had like horse saddles for Hermes, and I'm thinking, why? And then she's like, no, that's actually what they do. Like they do like horse saddles because it's like, that's what their logo is. And I'm thinking, that's such a unique, weird kind of thing. I bet they don't even sell too many of them. But I'm sure if you look at one of their ads, there's probably a horse frolicking in some yard. And they probably lean into that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Codify everything. It will help you. I think you see it. If you mentioned 2 podcasts there before, Stephen Bartlett and Chris. Is it Chris Williams or Chris Williamson?
Literally, I said Williamson last night, and then I was like, I think it's Williams. And then when I said it, I'm thinking, I think it's Williamson. Modern day wisdom.
Modern day wisdom.
Yes.
Right. You'll notice this, and this is part of the codification. Here we start kind of podcasting saying as the Stephen Bartlett with kind of the music.
Yeah.
That's a sonic cue.
Yeah.
As soon as you hear that, you might overhear it on the train or wherever. That's Stephen Bartlett. That's a sonic cue that's happening.
Yeah.
I think Chris on one day always starts with a type of hello and welcome back or something like this, something around that. So immediately it's quite a unique voice, quite different from other podcast producers out there. So all these little elements combined together, and just add that repetition becomes a brand code in itself, and therefore can be a cue to bring that brand and person back to mind immediately.
Yeah,
let's keep doing it. Keep the glasses, basically.
Keep the glasses. Maybe rework the. Actually, I do have an intro, but it's like I used to have like a Champions League opener intro, and then I started to see people like Stephen Bartlett who just said it's like, if you're listening, don't tell anyone. Or whatever he says. He says like that really like confusing catchphrase at the beginning, and I'm like, yeah, if you're listening, he's like, if you're listening, don't tell anyone or something like that. I'm thinking, wait, so if I'm listening, who am I telling? No, I'm not telling anyone. Yeah. So maybe I've got to rework that a bit, because that could be the full experience, the full audio experience. It's a good point. Yeah. I'll get into that. So the next thing that I want to talk about is the leadership role. You have worked under a pretty big team at The Iconic, I can imagine. How do you consistently get that message across? Because I understand that, like, with the designers that I'm working with for the UI UX for the Sculpted app, they've all got their own way of doing it. Yeah. If I say something to them, every single one of them will do something different every single time, and I'll give them the exact same thing, but it'll be different. How do you actually convey your message consistently across a team and lead that message to make it as the standard that you want it?
Okay. I think, look, there's a couple of things around this. And look, I've been part of an organization that grew at The Iconic from probably a few hundred people to 1,000 plus by the time I left. And so I've been I've been a part of big teams of probably 80, 90 people plus, and have led teams probably at biggest around 15 people, 3 direct reports, and then in turn people reporting into them. And there's a few things that stand out in terms of leadership specifically, and messaging, and how to make sure that that's effective, essentially. I think the number one thing to think about, and this is important when you're looking for a new role or within a business, is that you unify the business around a rallying call, a vision, something that you are all aiming for. And that bit, playing back into the emotional piece, is probably something that it needs to be inspiring, right? To build up that emotive connection. And it needs to be the thing that you repeatedly talk about all the time to people, especially the bigger the business becomes. Having a consistent message that you repeat, which is that unifying rally call, is super, super important. But it only works if you're repeating it all the time. Like we've been bombarded with 1,000 messages a day, especially in a busy workplace. So like completely repeat that. And look, if I take that into kind of context, when I first joined The Iconic, they had a real vision that there was a better way to shop, right? In Australia, and that they could be that better way to shop. And the leadership team and the execs at that point would always bring us back to that, right? We are disrupting, like cliche word, we're disrupting how retail is done. We are playing against the incumbents, the Myers, the DJs, right? That traditional way of shopping, of going into store, speak to the shopping assistant, go to the changing room, like very sort of transactional. And we're saying, okay, we can get thousands of brands, right? Hundreds and hundreds of brands, right? We can get it to you quicker than anybody else, and we can give you an incredible experience kind of through our app and our website, and make that whole experience just 10 times better than anything else you've ever experienced. So having that vision and rallying call, I think, is really important. And as the business got bigger, as businesses do get bigger, you need to move a little bit more into kind of formal ways of communication. One way and methodology that you can do that is through objectives and key results. All of this sitting under the vision, right? The company vision, that running call, quite simple on the motive. We're turning up here every day because we want to make, there is a better way to shop, right? We could really bring on the future of shopping, right? That vision is there. You then need to break that down as the company gets bigger. Objective and key results, so OKRs are a really great way of doing that. So you have that across you have business objectives, so there's big chunks. We need to hit X amount of revenue, this amount of customers, etc., whatever they need to be.
OKRs, is that
OKRs.
KPIs?
Yeah, very similar.
Okay.
Very similar, right? But there are methodology that you can use and a process that you can use to make sure everybody is aligned within the business to what we've got to deliver on. Right?
Okay.
Because in the day-to-day, there can be a million different things going on. Is this going to add value or is this just a distraction?
Yeah.
And the benefit of having those in place, objectives and key results, is they start from the top. So the exec team and the leadership team will build out kind of those big business objectives. And then each team, whether it's marketing, whether it's category management, the buying team, finance, ops, will have their own set of objectives and key results that ladder up to those big ones.
Okay.
And then in turn, so if you've got we need to deliver $1 million every single day as a key metric. Okay.
Was that actually a goal at the Iconic?
The numbers were much bigger than that. Much bigger than that. But let's say $1 million, right? How are we going to deliver on that objective, right?
Okay. So
within marketing, okay, if we're going to deliver $1 million in revenue this week, how can we contribute towards that? Well, we need X amount of customers spending this much every single day and coming back twice in the week. So you then start to build out smaller objectives and key results that help transition to that, which might then lead into pieces of activity for you and your team. Okay, if we're going to create that many orders, then this week we need to produce a campaign that does A, B, and C and reaches this many customers, because then with a 3% conversion rate, we know we're going to get that money, which contributes up the line. So objectives and key results, formal way of making sure that the whole business is aligned, because without that, and so as business grows, it becomes a lot harder to make sure that the vision is great to have, right? That rallying call to get people spirited and emotionally connected with kind of why we're getting up every day.
Yeah.
But then you've got to really formalize that. So objectives and key results help do that. Looping back to your question on getting everybody kind of aligned and behind that vision, I'd say repeat those key messages, right? All sizes of the business. So smaller businesses, you're starting to scale up. Be really clear on kind of what your mission is and your vision for the business. Formalize through OKRs. You can time bound those as well, right? And you'll tie them into a specific metric as well, right? So whether it's results or engagement or number of people that you're speaking to on the phones or reaching out to, it's measurable and time bound, right? So it makes people in teams and individuals very accountable for delivering on those. And then I think on a individual team level, if you want to keep people engaged within your team and inspired and kind of working towards that, you can start your weekly whip or your fortnightly whip, whatever that cadence is that kind of works for you and your team. We would make sure that everybody had a voice, right, within the team meeting. So it's not just kind of a top down, I'm sharing, here's what we need to do, go and do it.
I like that.
Right?
Yeah.
But actually, and we've trialed many different tools and systems, and actually fell back to using a really simple Google Doc that we would fill in each week. And everybody would come to the meeting and you could add in your section, in your square, the 3, 4, 5 things that you were working on that were really important that week. But you could only highlight a maximum of 3 that you were going to talk to, and you got 5 minutes to talk to those. Okay. And there'd be ones that you needed to be shared because there was probably an action or accountability or needed support from other people in the team. Yeah. Or was definitely stuff that you wanted people to be aware of because it might be in 2, 3, 4 weeks' time that you needed their input, right? So everybody got a voice. You got to see the most important stuff for people that were working on that week or that fortnight. You could see that there were other things that we're doing, right? But they weren't highlighted and bolded, right? Yeah. So they weren't important for the here and now. And it makes sure that everybody around the table got an opportunity to speak up and share kind of what they were working on. And that in itself, I think, is really important to give people a voice who might not necessarily in the day-to-day feel comfortable about doing it or want to do it. Helps kind of bring those along, give them confidence and get them to share. So look, there were some of the other methodologies. I mean, probably worth noting at this point as well that there are so many tools and processes out there that you can use. Workflowy for doing notes. I know you're a big Notion fan.
Yep.
Slack, Gchat. You got the Google suite of email. You got Microsoft email, Outlook. All these different systems. We expanded really quickly. So we were talking at some points over my years, kind of on 5 or 6 different platforms.
Yeah.
And actually, as we got bigger, we had to condense those.
Yeah.
Right. I am a G Suite user and lover. Just super easy to get into Docs and using email. And then outside of that, I personally use Workflow for just dumping notes down. Slack for quick comms.
Yeah.
But if we were communicating anything of real importance and note, we would use email or use Facebook Workplace.
Really?
Comms out to the entire business, yeah.
Interesting.
So there were specific channels then setting up for like major business updates that then might be recorded and shared so people could come back and look at them. But Workplace became the tool of, okay, we're doing business comms updates in the business. We'll do them through Facebook Workplace. You're having day-to-day kind of project stuff that you're working on in a team. Slack for that, like ease and backwards and forwards. And then I would often use email to follow up either with my team or the wider business. Not going out to the entire business, but if I wanted to give an update on performance of a campaign or an upcoming piece of activity, I would revert to email and use that almost as a follow-up to a meeting to then use email. Email actually became sort of went out of fashion, I think, but I think it's in a big way coming back into play, and we're really seeing it as a really valuable tool.
Yeah.
So that's sort of some of the methodologies and processes, and but there's so many out there.
Yeah.
There's so many. Just start using one, and if it works, great.
That literally, I wrote down what's the software that you use, and we literally went into it. And the software for me, I think that there's so many different SaaS products out there. It's a massive market.
Yeah.
I see it. There's so many people on YouTube who have their own SaaS, multiple brands.
Yeah.
It's very interesting to see, like, for example, in the tech space, Notion's very similar to like 5 other pieces of software. And like literally quite often, I think whatever one you see first and learn the quickest is probably the one that you stick with. And there's one called Jira, which is an Atlassian product.
Yeah.
And that's what I use for the software part. And I was like, I don't even know if I want to learn how to do this, because it took me so long to learn the basics of Notion.
Yeah.
And then I've had to learn Jira for my developer. I've had to then...
That's the way that they talk though, right?
Literally.
So it almost comes back into marketing, like who's your audience?
Yes.
And knowing your audience, engineers and techs and developers, they just talk through Jira. Yeah. If you want to read
Jira is their language.
Go through Jira.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's so many different, learning curves.
Yeah.
That are actually really helpful, because it also then helps you learn other skills really quickly. Yeah. And the leadership part, I think, is a really cool thing. Like, I love to be a leader, and I think that it's weird when I'm like leading a meeting with my team, being 19, but also I'm thinking, this is the best thing, because I'm thinking, who else my age? There's not many kids my age who are doing this. And then, hey guys, I don't want to interrupt this episode, but gotta do what I gotta do. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you leave a comment if you enjoyed it. If you want any to give any feedback, even just leave that below. We're open to everything. Join the Patreon, guys. There's gonna be a lot more stuff on there. We want to hear from you guys as well. We want to get you involved. If you want to be beta testers to the SCULPTED app, let me know. I can make that happen. Try and get involved at any level. What we're doing at Live Free, guys, make sure you check what we're doing there. Liam's got his own personal YouTube channel. He's always uploading. I've got my own personal YouTube channel that I've started uploading twice a month now. It's going to be cinematic like I am now, right? I've got the light above, got a cool camera. That's what I'm going to be working on, guys. So make sure you follow Live Free Diaries. SCULPTED app. We're doing great stuff over there. Additionally, we want to grow this podcast, guys. And the only way we can do that is through your guys' help. So make sure you subscribe, listen to us on all audio platforms. We're everywhere. So make sure you interact with us. Make sure that you help us grow, because the only way that we can grow this podcast is through you. We'll get better guests. We've always had great guests from the get-go, but we'll get even better guests on. Production value will go up. I've got my studio, but we need to get Liam his studio, and the only way we can do that is through monetizing this platform. So make sure you do that, guys. And I'll get back to the episode. I'll let you go. I should try and lean into it even more. And that's what I think, is a really good part of my brand even. That's something I want to lean into. So that brings me into another thing, actually. Liam and I were creating a group of like-minded individuals, entrepreneurs, and we're going to do like weekly calls where it's called Connect Them. And I've done all the branding. Thankfully, I'm like, okay, on Figma. And it's I've had it look very luxury. And we want to end up doing like in-person events where it's just kids our age who are trying to get better, trying to become, entrepreneurs in this landscape. And yeah, that's such a side topic, but literally like before you came, I was like working on it. Yeah. And I've been working on it for the past few days. And I think that type of thing is like a really cool thing to get behind.
Absolutely.
Set a standard. And
is the input of that going to be, or is one arm of that going to be in-person meeting as well? Yes. Yeah.
I think that will have the most impact, because that's where you can feel like in a safe space, almost like away from the tall poppy syndrome. You're in a group of like-minded people who won't like actually cut you down. They'll actually give you more water. They'll give you sunlight. They'll help you grow. I think something like that is actually, I don't want to spill my whole like game on the podcast, but so you and me in Australia, I think there's like a really like big market for that, so that's what I'm gonna do that. I've got well-wearing mics, but
I don't think it's very well, the whole networking piece I don't think is done particularly well. And I've been to a number of events over the past couple of months, and while you're in a room full of like-minded people, the icebreaker and getting people to talk to you is like, some people are introverted, right? And they don't want to do that, and they couldn't think of anything worse. They want to go to this thing because yes, they're in a similar boat as these other people. And once you can break that ice piece, right? Once you can get them having a conversation for 4 minutes maximum, until you're sent straight on to the next person, then I think it adds a ton of value. I went to an event with Mandy Millen in Terrigal at a co-working space about a month ago. And it was brilliant because Mandy commanded the room in a way and said, you get 4 minutes with everybody. This is like, we use the term speed dating, but you get the idea. Introduce yourself, what you do, other person has to listen. And then it was just super quick, but that really broke the ice for those people that kind of introverted. So it's going into these events, I think it's something to have in mind. How do we make sure that everybody's getting maximum value out of this session? Because there is the in-person, I think post the COVID period, we fast forwarded something that would have happened anyway. And by that, I mean that we can work both from home and in the office.
Yes, good point.
And if you think about the Atlassians of the world, which are kind of work from anywhere, I think they aim to get together. I'm not sure if it's once a year or twice a year. It might be a little bit more. They have a proven formula, and they've shared all these learnings. That complete remote working can be done effectively. Right. And we're starting to see a flip on that from a lot of businesses. I think a lot of the big financial institutions are saying, now we want you back in the office 3, if not 4 days a week. I remember the tail end of COVID thinking, this is great, I never need to go into the office again. But actually what you lost in terms of that human connection and the water cooler conversations and building up emotional connections with people, which is we are humans, we are built to be social and interacting with people. You get that balance right, it's super important. So to round back in on your point about having a space where you can meet up with like-minded people, I think it's very important to have that part in person as well as digital, a call as in person, because you can build connections there with people that you can't necessarily do over a phone or through a screen.
100%.
Good luck with it.
I have one massive confusion point when it comes to your role, the Iconic, because it really made me think when I saw how you've gone from a startup pretty much at the Iconic when you first started working with them to where they are now and to the role that you had there. You must have improved so quickly, and you were forced to improve so quickly because the Iconic could scale much faster than any person can learn, especially with skill, right? If I was to learn how to become a professional golfer, to become one of the best in Australia in 10 years' time, I probably couldn't do it. I probably have to be doing it for 20 years. You managed to do that from pretty freshly out of university and after your first job in the UK in the marketing scene. How did you adapt so quickly to being at such a high level of marketing in such a quickly growing brand in almost like uncharted territory for yourself? What was that like for you? Like, were you just constantly dropped in the deep end?
Whoa, there's so much to unpack in that. Okay. And by no means, by the way, so the caveat and all this, like an expert marketeer, right? Learn a ton on the job and probably a big vote for getting into companies, especially startups, for people in similar stage of life as yourself, because you get exposed to so many different parts of the business.
Yes.
Right? So essentially, yes, to your point before, you are dropped in the deep end.
Yeah.
Now, my leg in to the Iconic was through a role. It was through, I think it was for an A/B testing manager.
Okay.
And I'd done a small part of that in my previous role in the UK.
Yeah.
So that was just my in.
Wow.
Right? I just leaned on that as an in.
Yeah.
Right? Somebody was leaving, the perfect opportunity, and got in there.
The Stephen Bartlett unique skill stacking, that's kind of like what got you in. The A/B testing isn't necessarily a skill that you would all the time attach with marketing, right? So when you were able to have those two, that gave you the unique kind of proposition to go forwards and separate yourself from the rest. Is that kind of the thing?
It was an inroad for me. But then talking about the skill stacking, then once you are through the door, I could see different parts of the business. Simple things like having a marketing calendar that mapped out kind of the activity that we were doing across channels for the rest of the year. Something we'd done in the UK, right? And then I said, hey, here's this template. Like, we don't seem to have plans that go beyond sort of 3 or 4 week timeline. Let's build out these blocks, and here's a template that we can use. So started bringing in sort of some of that experience. But the type of culture and setup that you get in startups is that you have a really compelling vision that everybody's getting behind.
Yeah.
Everybody was at least 7 years younger than me, right? So like similar age to yourself, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23 years old.
Yeah.
All excited about this vision of changing the way people shop in ANZ, and this culture of just let's try stuff and let's see what sticks, right?
Yeah.
Spending money, online performance, doing TV campaigns, but before that kind of load of free stuff as well, working on socials, A/B testing, seeing what sticks, getting new brands in and on board. And you are essentially thrown in the deep end, but the benefit of being in the startup in that environment is you get exposed to all different parts of the business. So not only marketing, but you understand kind of how the buying process works and the category management piece does. You understand that when you do a piece of activity, like a Click Frenzy, those big sort of sales events, you understand what impact that has on the operations teams in the fulfillment center.
Okay.
Case in point, we get excited internally in the marketing team. This event's going to be massive. Did you get on the phone and tell the fulfillment center that we were doing this big, massive event and the orders are probably going to go 100x overnight? No, forgot to do that. So you make a ton of mistakes. You learn really quick, and you are thrown into the deep end. And that is I think is the one of the greatest ways to learn. As the business scales then and gets bigger, you've had exposure to all these different parts of the business. You're learning your craft a little bit. I think what happens as the business grows as well is new individuals come into the business that have a greater level of experience than you and professionalism than you, that you in turn can learn from. So that's important. So as the business gets bigger, it attracts bigger and better talent, which in turn fills your flywheel of learning. So you're learning from these great people that are coming in, and so the flywheel continues. So great people learning, making mistakes, learning from them, passing that knowledge on to other people within the team. Flywheel continues to grow. And I can't remember what the original question was.
The scaling part.
The scaling part.
How did you scale your skill set?
It was really up until a certain point, I'd say 5-6 years in, it was by learning on the job, right? It was by doing. Yeah. So I could key message for everybody is just start doing.
Yeah.
Because from that you're going to learn, and you're going to make a ton of mistakes along the way, and that's fine because that's the way you learn. This is something that's so important, I think, to pass on to people who are leaning into business and doing anything, quite frankly, that I try and pass on to my son. Kids especially, my eldest is very sensitive about making mistakes, but it's wrong whether it's building a Lego the wrong way and it kind of breaks down or he's missed an instruction. Like, it's fine to make mistakes. It's okay. You got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable in making mistakes, because from that you learn.
Yeah.
So you learn on the job, right, as you're scaling up, and you're learning from people around you and you're learning from doing. And then personally, I reached a point where I wanted to go back into the fundamentals of marketing and branding and kind of go back into the books, and did 2 mini MBAs, both with Mark Ritson, who's a marketing professor, previously taught at in Melbourne and lots of other fantastic universities across the world. He is a Vegemite character. You love him or you hate him.
Yeah.
I'm a big lover.
Okay.
And I went back and did a mini MBA in marketing, and then about a year later did a mini MBA in brand management. And that was essentially went back to the fundamentals, the 101s of marketing.
Yeah.
And it was a stark reminder of, I've learned this on the job from doing. And intrinsically, almost without thinking, you're doing these things. You described this earlier, right? I want to describe those 3 for this.
Yeah.
Marketing orientation, like strategy and tactics. Oh, I kind of did that. There was a real click point for me when I went back and then did those 2 mini MBAs, because I was like, oh, I've been doing some of that stuff, actually, but some of it I've been doing in reverse. I've been doing in the wrong order. And actually, as a business, we probably don't think enough about this, which helps inform this later. So it was a real eye-opener. It was a reminder of a lot of the stuff that I missed at university because I wasn't paying attention, quite frankly. And it certainly helped me in the role at that point, and I think probably more so now going forward on getting clearer on the bits of the role that I love and those that I like less. So in recap, first 5 years, learn on the job by doing, and then you'll get to a level where you're learning from the people around you. I then benefited from almost going back to school, but doing it completely online, so made it very accessible. I think one of the other good things to consider is having mentors in your life. Those mentors are people that are in a position that you want to be in, are people that aspire you, get you excited, have done the things that you want to do, right? And it is, I must say, it's a little bit scary sometimes to reach out to these people, right? And almost even, look, I'm 43 years old, but I've hesitated so many times on just sending a message out. And one example I can share is there's a podcast called The Uncensored CMO. It's run by, hosted by John Evans. John, I think, started the podcast sort of during the COVID period. Seasoned CMO, worked for big drink companies, worked for Brewdog, the beer company in the UK, for a very short period. Google him, very interesting story, great podcast. And gets a ton of fantastic guests on, right? The CMOs from around the world, of all the biggest global brands that you've ever come across and everything in between. So always has really, really interesting conversations with them. And he did an episode with the CMO, whose name escapes me right now, of the very group in the UK company that I worked for before I came here. And she talked about her 30, 60, 90 days first in the role. And as I'm looking for a new role, it was a brand that I used to work for, and B, it was really useful and relevant information as I'm thinking about going into my next role. What should I be doing in those first 30 days? What are the types of questions you should be asking? So it's very tangible stuff. And I thought to myself, I love this content. So I wanted to say thank you to John. I also wanted to get a bit of advice one-on-one, if he'd be open to it, on kind of how can I think about my journey to becoming a CMO, right? What are the things I should consider? And I reached out to him on LinkedIn, and he said, yeah, cool, no problem. Probably going to be busy for the next couple of weeks because I'm in the States covering the Super Bowl. And then a couple of weeks later, he just happened to be in Australia recording a couple of episodes. And I reached out to him and he said, sure, can talk tonight. And we jumped on a call for about 30 minutes.
Wow.
And just the power of all of those thoughts that you had in your head is like, is he going to think I'm a dickhead?
Yeah.
What am I going to do? Just do it. The majority of people, when you ask them for advice, want to help you.
Yeah.
Yeah, they want to help. There is no, what's the downside? You get ignored.
Yeah.
Cool. Like, I found nothing lost there. And they might, if they come back to you and respond, they might say, look, it's not the right time for me. Fine, you still haven't lost anything. The upside is that they help you. And we had a great 30-minute call, and he was very giving with his time. And I think it just shows you the power of kind of reaching out and finding mentors in your life. And I guess that's the bit to kind of cap on. So if you think about scaling, how you grow your skill set, learn on the job by doing and failing, right? Add in an element there of, are there specific skills or things that you want to learn? And like there is, the information is either on YouTube already or online, or if it's a course for you, then fine. But find your thing that you kind of want to add to that skill set. For me, it was going back to some of the fundamentals of marketing and branding. And I got that through an online, easily accessible course.
Yeah.
And the third thing is surround yourself and find people that can be really great mentors.
Yeah.
That's how you're going to learn. I think that the longer you go through your career as well, you learn that you go from being a generalist, and you then need to start to focus on the things that you're really good at. So as you grow a team, you have a team of people who are specialized in certain areas, and actually your job then becomes to be the leader, to be the team leader, to inspire your team, to make sure that kind of they are, everything is out of the way, you get all the hurdles out of the way so they can do their job. And I think one of the interesting insights that Don Evans shared with me is that, look, when you do reach the CMO position, actually it's quite a lonely gig, because you're no longer doing the stuff that you used to do. Like you have to empower your team to do the job, to write the brief, to analyze and respond to the brief that might be coming back for an agency or internally or a team. And you can have a point of view and an opinion, and you're in the WhatsApp groups, and you're doing the chit chat backwards and forwards, and you're part of that team. You then, once you become to that CMO stage, you're kind of removed from that. You're working with the exec team.
Yeah.
Now, I ain't there yet, but it was really insightful to say, look, there's a step change there. You're no longer doing some of the stuff that you might consider really fun, and you're thinking about board stuff and a lot more about the kind of total business numbers and how we make the business work. And that was an insight that I hadn't really had before, and that you wouldn't have unless you reach out to these people. So learn on the job, find ways and things that you are passionate about and love, and find the courses, the content that can help you learn more about that, and then find a great group of people and mentors that you can look up to and learn from. And that comes from just reaching out.
Yeah, amazing. I think that the reaching out thing is something that is so powerful. It's so easy to do, yet so few people do it.
Yes.
And that has been something that I think has been a consistent thing in my life, to reach out. That's how we got here.
Yeah.
Although on your end.
Yeah.
And I'm sure many more things will happen through the exact same process that you just explained then. And if anyone's listening who is scared to reach out, I think you literally outlined it perfectly, to how there's literally like zero risk. The only downside is you get ignored. And a lot of the time people don't even like purposely ignore you to like personally offend you. It may look like that, but it's actually not that most of the time. So that truly should give you the power to do whatever you want through social media, which again is free, but so powerful. So that is a really, really good point. Now,
it's a numbers game, right?
Okay, that's true. Yeah, that's true.
So like the conversion rate of most businesses might be 3, 4, 5%. If you apply that to sending 100 messages out there, if you get 5 responses, brilliant. You've done well. But go into thinking, these people might respond, but that's fine. Get comfortable with being uncomfortable, and like start sending those messages out there. And another thing I got told is, you ask people for a job, they'll give you advice, and you ask them for advice, they'll offer you a job. So when you're playing to people's emotions and their expertise, right? If somebody's an expert in TikTok and bringing content to life on TikTok, right? And that's an area that you want to learn about, you can play to that. So listen, you're an expert in this area. I really love the content you produced about this. I find it really inspiring. I'd love to get your advice on this topic because you're an expert within this area. You're kind of playing to their ego a little bit throughout that. It's true, but when you play to their ego a little bit and kind of get them engaged, it's an easier way to open the door and get them to respond, right? It comes from a genuine place, but remember that you're playing kind of with emotions here a little bit and playing to the ego a bit. So use that to your advantage. Yes, you want to learn this because you are passionate about it and you're interested in it. But in part of that communication, play those comms a little well. Like Google this stuff as well. You like on how to, if you're not comfortable in sending the message, just Google, how can I approach cold call somebody via LinkedIn if I'm looking for mentorship?
Yeah.
And there are 30 templates that you can use and then add your own little twist on it.
100%.
Short and succinct as well, because I think you're limited on characters. If you haven't connected with somebody, you're limited on the amount.
Sometimes. It's like an in-mail for a premium feature. But yeah, definitely the long messages are, I mean, I try and reply to everyone on LinkedIn. Like I try and make a point to reply to everyone because I just hate being like Ed. Because that's, in my football career, I was sending thousands and thousands of emails on, email and then LinkedIn especially. And I'm like, it is tedious. But I want to make a point to reply back to every single message, even if it's just a no, sorry, not right now, or sorry, I can't help. I feel like it's like due courtesy to reply back. And I understand that it's at a higher level. There has to be a point where you just can't. Yeah. But
and it's tough and it's time consuming, right?
It is.
And like brands, right? But I think especially when you're working for a brand, you know the ins and outs of it, and it's the most important thing in the world. But actually, in consumers' minds, brands ain't that fucking important. Is my French, right? You come to mind in a buying situation when you're either in the supermarket or you have a need that you need to fulfill, but they're not thinking about the brand all the other time, right? And it's the same when you're reaching out to people. I've done it a million times. You get a text message in the middle of a meeting, or you're having a call with somebody, or you're doing something, or you're shopping, right, I'll get back to that message. But it isn't of the highest importance to me at that point, because I need to go and pick up the kids, and then I need to do dinner, and I need to get them down in the bath, and then they chill out for a little while and watch a bit of Netflix, get to bed early, so I'll get my 8 hours before tomorrow. So you're not going to hear from people. It's not personal. It's not personal. So just get the numbers out there, start reaching out to people.
Love it. Now, aware of the time, to finish the episode off, I want to go through the 3 ways that you sculpt yourself on a daily basis. Now, I think I already know one of them, which is on your lap right now, because every time that we've met up, it's been there, it's been important, and I really like it. I think that's probably going to be one of your ways. Correct me if I'm wrong. But what are 3 ways that you sculpt yourself on a daily basis?
Okay. So early riser, we talked about, and look, whether you're an early riser or not, for me, getting up early, because those first couple of hours of the day are sacred. I'd say even more so now that it's dark, right? It just feels like it's even more just
finite
and time that I've got. When the sun comes up, then it's game over. The kids are going to be up. So early rise, exercise in the house. So I'm not a member of a fancy gym, right? I've got a couple of little weights and kettlebells at home, but body weight exercise, if I do something physical in the morning, 20, 25 minutes, 30 minutes, my day is 10x better. Endorphins are pumping, feel like I've achieved something. I'm off to a good start. So that's the first thing. Up early and doing some exercise, no matter how small it is, right? And I think this is really important. Something is better than nothing. And building it into becoming a habit, and so that if your alarm goes off at 5 o'clock every day, that by 5:05 you're downstairs in the front room and you're doing some squats or lunges or whatever it is. If you make that a habit, it becomes easier, and you're just having that great start to your day. So up early and a little bit of exercise, no matter what that might be. Second thing is, and really got into this with friends, especially over sort of the last year and a half, but started dabbling from probably about 3 years ago, is ice baths and saunas. Hot topic at the moment. So much content out there about it and the benefits. When we started doing it regularly, and there's a fantastic place around the corner at G6 Boxing, they do a recovery centre, and it's 5 minutes away from where we live. They can get that in the morning, and I've basically been every other day for probably the last 3 weeks with a friend. It is such a wakener to the day. Getting in 5-degree water for 5 minutes.
Oh, wow.
Wakes you up.
Yeah.
Big time. Release all the endorphins, spike proteins, all the things that go along with that. So combination of ice plunge and sauna, especially if I do it in the morning, like just untold benefits. And the third thing, and it's not journaling, which I think you were talking about, but I do love taking notes, is spending time with the family. But when I say this, I want it to be really specific. It's actually being really present in the moment with family members. So my wife and my 2 boys, right? It's very, very easy, right, to think I've got to do the dinner, bath time, all these things, cleaning up. But spending 10, 15 minutes with the boys, either individually or together, just to sit there and play and not be thinking about the messages or other things that we need to do, being truly present, it's really, really hard to do. Adds untold value and feeling of goodness if I can do that and get into that state with the boys and my wife. That gives me a healthier, happier day if I can do that. And it's not always possible, right? There's always going to be a balance of family has to take priority today and this time versus work. Especially if you're starting a new role, you might need to lean into it a bit more. But if I can carve out even a small amount of time to be present, and it's really tricky to do actually, be present and just be thinking about having this play period with the boys and talking with my wife, then that adds a ton of value to my day. That's what I love. That what helps me become sculpted.
Perfect. Well, Patrick, this has been an amazing episode. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
As did I.
I'm very grateful for, firstly, the connection. Secondly, the podcast. Thirdly, whatever's going to happen in the future. Because for me, I'm very, very grateful for the connection. And as I said before, the connection is something that I really try to lean on.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm very thankful again. And I hope that the listeners got something from this, because if they didn't, I sure did. So, and I think that they did. But really, really good episode. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It was awesome.
Yeah, mega. And we probably actually should just add one thing. But the reason that we connected, right, is you were looking for a CMO, Chief Marketing Officer, for Sculpted.
Yeah.
And I think my wife saw it before I saw it on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn, great tool.
Yeah.
Caught her attention, and she said, I think this guy lives locally. And I dove in, had a little look at what you were looking for, found the pod, found kind of some video blogs that you'd done, noticed the track that's near to us both, and reached out and said, look, one, I'm not looking to get up into working for a startup again. I'm happy to meet up, would love to have a coffee, learn more, and see if I can support in any way.
Yeah.
I've been out in the market looking for a job for about 6 months now, doing various bits and doing a little bit of consulting and contract work. But I've got a ton of value from just having these conversations, right? And we met for the first time. I learned a lot about Sculpted and kind of your journey, and it's ended up here.
Yeah.
So this is the power of just putting it out there.
Yeah.
The value of putting it out there, reaching out. You were looking for CMO. While I wasn't looking for that role, we built this connection now. We're having a great talk and sharing insights and learnings with people. So moral of the story, just reach out.
And the funny thing is about the CMO role is that I wasn't even looking for a CMO, as I told you. It was actually, I was looking for someone to like kind of be that advisory role, because I knew that when I put the CMO role out, people naturally see that and they want to, you get a lot better people who are looking for CMO roles than, let's say, like a marketing advisor.
Yeah.
So that's where I was like, I'll do that.
Yeah.
And long and behold,
here we are.
Patrick.
Having a chat.
Yeah. So that's a little tip, little LinkedIn tip and connection tip. So yeah, that was a good little piece of gold. But thank you guys again for listening to this episode of Sculpted Podcast. More of this type of vibe to come. Studio is looking immaculate.
Beautiful.
First.
Fantastic setup.
Yeah. And
super impressed.
This is just going to happen more frequently now. So make sure you subscribe. Follow us on all social medias. There'll be many clips from this episode out on social media as well. So make sure you interact, share this with a friend, and we'll catch you in the next episode of Sculpted Podcast. Thanks for listening. Patrick, that was awesome.
Cheers, dude.
Very, very good. Very good.
It was really good, mate. Enjoyed it.